the art of living lies in a fine mingling of letting go and holding on. Havelock Ellis. The Walking Dead, Season 1, Episode 5, Wildfire. There are no trigger warnings for this episode, but if at any point during the episode you feel uncomfortable, please feel free to take a break or to skip that part of the episode. Thanks for listening, stay safe, and stay sane. What is up, everyone, and welcome back to Feed Don't Eat Your Brain. I'm Zachary Ballard, and thank you to all those that have listened. Really appreciate you guys. Today we have a guest with us. His name is Kevin Soto. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Howdy, boys. This is Kevin Soto, computer science major, and huge fan of Zach.
Aw, thanks.
Yeah, I've seen you act, boy. Good old times. Good old times.
Oh, I don't know about that, but no, we met at Utah State University Eastern, along with Chris, Mac, and Josh.
40 years ago.
Oh, and Alina. Olivia did not go there, but so far all my guests I've met down there, but we'll definitely get more in the future. But yeah, we did a ton of theater together down there, and he's pretty cool. Kevin's a pretty cool guy, you know.
Yeah, sometimes I do cry a lot too. it's the theater item.
You nurse a bottle of rum chata sometimes, you know.
Oh yeah, it's still a joke. Oh my god, good times though.
Good times. All right, so Kevin, how familiar are you with Walking Dead? Have you seen it? Was this your first episode?
Honestly, I was trying to get into The Walking Dead, but I don't know what happened. It's one of those shows where, like, yeah, I'll give it a shot, but it's like 10 seasons ahead, and I already know what's going on, and I got spoiled to it, so, you know, it deterred me a bit.
Oh, yeah, because we would watch it around while you were around.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so you kind of already know some of the stuff. Okay. Yeah, so this was, like, your first time watching it after a while, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Luckily, we started with the first season, because that's where The Walking Dead got huge, so I know the quality of the script and whatnot, or the storytelling is, like, solid. It's about zombies, and you remember Corey, right? He liked the show too, but he said like...
No, I don't remember Corey at all, Kevin.
Oh, sorry. That's not Well, he said something about the lines of, like, the later seasons is more about the survivalists than the zombies, and the first seasons are more like the zombies of, you know, surviving the zombie apocalypse instead of, like, the after effects or something like that.
Yeah, just so you guys don't know, Corey was our theater teacher down in Price.
Huge nerd. I love you, though.
Yeah, he'll never listen to this. Are you kidding me?
Oh, I'll make him listen.
He'll never listen to this. Anyway, so without further ado, let's get going. So, as I was watching the episode, I really noticed that this whole episode is just about grief and the 5 stages of grief. Did you catch that?
Oh.
Yeah. For starters, I'm going to talk about Dale, because when he's trying to console Andrea, and he's talking about his dead wife, he, like, literally lists through the 5 stages of grief. He was
yes.
He was like, my wife got cancer, and at first I couldn't accept it, and then he was like, then I got really angry that my wife had cancer. Well, anger was sort of interchanged between bargaining, because he was like, I was taking her to every doctor, and then after she died, I got really depressed, and I couldn't find a purpose until I met you two. And so, like, he literally goes through the 5 stages of grief in that one monologue.
I do remember that, too. She was just... Well, I was in that scene. I think she was consoling I didn't catch the names, but of the twins, I think?
They're not twins. They're just sisters.
Oh, okay. They look very twins. Anyways, yeah, I felt like they were just trying to console her because she got bitten and she's dead. So it's a ticking bomb at this point now. So I was feeling the anxiety of that moment, too. But now you mentioned of the stages of grief, now I see the theme around it. You're seeing her just in shock because it was her birthday too. So imagine being for her birthday for the first time in, like, a long time, and she's dead. And she's gonna be a zombie, and you know it.
And we'll talk about that in a minute. But, like, I just kind of want to go through, like, where we saw each stage of grief throughout the episode. So first one is denial. Basically, something bad happens to you, or something bad is happening to you, and you or around you, and you basically can't believe that it happened. And we saw that when Jim was bit, and he was just trying to, like, help out the camp, and it was sort of like when you're sick. It was like when you're sick and you're like, I don't think he was, like, purposely trying to hide the zombie bite because he was scared. I genuinely think that he was like, I'll get this, like, I'll tell them when we're ready, handle it, but I just want to help out first, and I don't want to accept this right now. I don't want to accept this bite. I don't really want to scare everyone right now while we're trying to like bury the bodies or burn the bodies, and then like when everyone's freaking out and it's like, you're bit, dude, and he was like, no, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Like that was straight denial of that trauma that he experienced, you know?
Yeah, because at first I thought he was, he just got wounded. I'm like, well, probably he fell or something, or he got hit or something. But once you see the bites, like, oh, you're a zombie now. Like, what's the crew gonna do? Because they have their own little moral code of not killing human beings. Like,
well, Rick mentions that because Daryl's about to kill him right then and there.
It's like, let's not take any risks.
Like, we're not taking any risks. You're done. And then Rick's like, we don't kill living people. And Alina did something funny. She started laughing and she was like, that's going to change really quick. But no, we're in the now right now, okay? Yeah, like Daryl's about to kill him. And it's really fascinating how we go from we don't kill living people to we kill some living people to we kill a lot of living people. You know, it's interesting. But then we go down to anger, and Daryl is... I love Daryl, but I do not like Daryl in this episode. Daryl's really angry, and he's just being a huge asshole the entire episode. He's just going around, like, I feel like the zombies have already been, like, hit in the head, otherwise they wouldn't be, like, lying there. But he's, like, going around, hitting them again, and then he's, like, yelling at everyone, and I really think that he was angry about Merle's. Like, he was in the stage of anger about Merle being gone. Like, it's pretty safe to assume that Merle's dead. We know he's not, but, like, I'm pretty sure he thinks that Merle's dead, and he like yells at them. He's like, "You left them for dead. This is what you get," you know. And so when I realized that he was probably going through the anger stage of grief, I felt more sympathy for him.
You gotta think on the emotional value, because when you're cool-headed, then you obviously think more critically. You actually watch your words, but when you're going through grief, you just want to release that. That emotion, and well, if it's like denial, then well, you're trying to be as cool as possible, but something is like attacking you. With anger, you're releasing your anger, and sometimes when you release anger, the filters break, so you start acting like an animal, basically.
Yeah. Well, when you're going through that really hard process, it's so hard to like act within your values. And then we see a lot of bargaining.
Oh yeah.
You mentioned this before, where Andrea was having regret not spending time with Amy, and gosh, regret is such a horrible emotion to face.
Oh yeah, because you always look back and it's like when you're going through that first stage of regret, you always wish you could go back and have the knowledge from the future to prevent that.
Yeah, well, like it's such a powerful emotion, and it's so easy to just put things off and not deal with them, and then you realize it's too late. And you know, she was gonna give her that gift, but then she died, and it just sucks. And you can see it. Like, I think she's in between bargaining and depression right now.
Yeah.
And you see a little bit of the anger seeping through when she points the gun at Rick.
Yeah, it's like he just wants to get over it. It's like she's a ticket bomb.
But like you have to be able to allow people to go through their grief. You know, they were worried about the camp because Amy was going to turn any minute. But like I feel like they should have just let her deal with it, and she had it under control. Like she was going to kill Amy once she turned. You know, but she just wanted to see her, I guess, one last time and tell her that she loved her, and then, you know, killed her, but she was already dead, you know. And so you just see this regret, and you see her like bargaining when she's saying that, like, if I would have been a better sister, maybe, like, you know, I could have watched out for her more, this wouldn't have happened, or like I could have just spent more time with her.
Just thinking about the past and just wishing to go back to the past, which, well, unless, it's impossible.
Yeah.
And I believe we both been through those stages. Like, we made some mistakes in the past, and we always want to fix them later.
Not me, dude.
Shut up.
just kidding. Kidding. I definitely have a lot of regrets. Try to make decisions where I don't have regrets, but it's impossible to go through this life without regrets.
Yeah. All you can do is like move on from them and just learn from them. Which, if they do,
the biggest thing with regrets is like learning from them.
Yeah, and it sucks. It's a pain. It is a pain. But if the situation happens again, you actually have like it feels like a second chance, but it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And well,
you get to change and you get to grow.
Yeah,
you know,
that's life. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we see a bargaining moment when they find out that Jim was bit, and Rick, he's immediately like, okay, what can we do to help him? You know, like, and I realize that this is the first time Rick has like seen someone bit, and so everyone's like, he's dead. We can't do anything to fix him. But then Rick, like, he hasn't seen anyone bitten before. He's only seen like humans and zombies before, or corpses, at this point in time. And so he's trying to think of ways like, well, we could go to the CDC. And, you know, imagine living in a world where people trust the CDC.
Yeah, I mean, we love the CDC.
Yeah, well, it's just so funny. They go talk to Dr. Fauci. No.
Oh my god.
Anyway, but Rick's like thinking, he's like, well, there's the CDC. Let's go see if like they can help him. Maybe they have a cure. And everyone's like, they don't have a freaking cure. And he's like bargaining for Jim because he's never seen this happen before. You know, where like everyone else has already accepted once you're bit, you're dead. But except for Rick. Rick is like already bargaining stage, like, hey, let's try to help him, you know?
I think
and
because...
interesting.
Yeah, it's because... I believe it's because of his leadership persona of no man left behind, no matter how badly wounded you are, even if you got bit by a zombie. Like, I think he's trying to save as many people as he can, but there are situations where you just can't do anything.
Yeah. He goes immediately to bargaining when we all know, like, he's donezo. But then we also see bargaining between Rick and Shane a lot with all the deaths that happened the previous night. And Shane said that, you know, they probably would have still been alive if Rick didn't take half the manpower with him. But then Rick rebutted and was like, well, we brought back guns, so maybe more deaths would have happened, you know? And so they're bargaining these deaths. They're like, you know, trying to like justify like what happened, and like are trying to say like, well, this wouldn't have happened if, you know, if you did this, or if this happened differently. And we don't know what would have happened differently. And it's so unhealthy to just be in that mindset of like trying to rewrite the past and trying to like think of like, well, if this happened, then this wouldn't have happened, you know?
Yeah, which, I mean, you don't know. It's every risk you take has a consequence, whether you like it or not. So it's at that point, it's just gambling. Like, had they not taken the guns, and they will have been powerless, basically. Like, yeah, you have the strength.
They had a few guns, but not nearly enough. And then they come rolling in with like the guns, and it's, you know, you if something bad or tragic happens, you don't know that the choices you made would have helped it or changed it. You know, like it's just. It's not that simple, and it's not that cut and dry. Like, and we have no way to prove, you know, destiny or whatever, or like the sacred timeline or whatever. But it's I don't necessarily believe in destiny. I don't believe in pre-written. Like, I believe we all have a choice, and the choices we make heavily influence where our lives go. But you don't know that if you made a slightly different choice, that it wouldn't have happened. You know.
Yeah.
And it's just so fascinating because, you know, we're constantly trying to
fix our mistakes.
Fix what's wrong that happened to us, you know?
Yeah. That's the beauty. Well, the beauty and the curse of regret.
Yeah. And then we talked about depression a little bit. The only one I saw for depression was Andrea waiting for Amy to turn, because she's just basically catatonic looking at her, you know. She only says a few words to get people off her back, and then she's just like focused in on her.
Sometimes when people are in that grieving stage, the best thing to do is just
leave them alone.
Yeah, because sure, when people are sad, you will just want to give them company, but when it's with grief, you need to give them space.
Yeah. But then again, you can only leave them alone for so long.
Oh yeah,
like you can't allow them, like if they have been grieving for like, let's say like 3 months is a pretty healthy time to let someone grieve. But if like I feel like if they continue to you know, continue to be catatonic, depressive, and they're not trying to accept, like, because death is hard, and tragedy is hard to deal with, and people have every right to to have the time to grieve and to get over it, you know.
Yeah.
But again, it's not healthy to continue to not get over your grief and your sadness, you know.
Yeah.
You gotta find a time. If someone's not helping themselves, like, you gotta be like, listen, this isn't healthy. Like, this sucked. Your sister died, and I do think Andrea bounced back pretty quickly. She just needed to see her wake up. I think that's what her motive was there, you know?
Yeah, at first I was just confused, like, what if she gets beaten and it's gonna be a chaos? And
Mm-hmm.
it was just, I was feeling anxious in that scene, but once she slowly tried to wake up, and I feel like there was just a little bit of humanity just to see her, because she didn't, like, attack her aggressively. She just was holding on just to see her one last time.
Mm-hmm. And I can also see, like, why the camp was freaking out, because they're like, we gotta freaking
time bomb, right?
we gotta shoot her in the head right now, or she's gonna turn, you know. And I'd probably be on the side of Daryl. I'd be like, we gotta freaking find a way to do it, dude. Like,
yeah.
But
she did it in a super safe way. Like, she didn't get bit, just a quick.
Yeah, she had it all under control.
Which that made me feel comfortable. It's like, okay, as long as people know what they're doing with their disease.
And I think a lot of people do. Most people do know how to grieve and, like, what their grieving process is. I myself have not had anyone yet close to me die. I'm very, very lucky in that sense. But I know it will happen to me because I have parents and I'm the youngest of 6 kids, so it's gonna happen eventually. But I do feel like, you know, people know how to grieve, and, like, you just got to give them enough time, but don't give them, like, too much time where their grief process becomes very harmful for them and their well-being.
Yeah, like, let them grieve alone, but also let them know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
Because the moment they start feeling alone, that's the moment when they can go to you and they can release themselves. Like, I believe with the depression part of the grief stage, the healthy step is to let them alone. Then the mix between being alone and with your friends and your loved ones, and then it's with your loved ones, and that's when you feel like, okay, I'm gonna move on with a little bit of help. You know, carry my bags for a little bit. And then you help me carry my bags for a little bit, and then I can carry the rest of that weight on myself. And at the end, you move on. I think that's my healthy process of dealing with grief.
Yeah, and, like, speaking of, like, acceptance and, like, dealing with grief, I gotta love Glenn in this moment where they're about to burn, like, their own people, you know, instead of burying them, and Glenn's like, you know, it's easier to. They're in this mindset of, we gotta clean up camp and we gotta, you know, fix this, but, like, Glenn's like, no, we're not burning our own people. We got to bury them. And my heart just broke because you just saw, like, this is how we grieve for our people, and we're not animals. Like, we need to treat our people, like, civilly, and not saying, like, cremation is bad, but I mean, the manner in which they were doing it is they built a fire and they were just putting the bodies on the fire. Like, it wasn't respectful at all. It wasn't, like,
not even like 5 minutes of, you know, a minute of silence for this corpse that we're about to burn. Like, not even a little preach or anything. Like,
yeah, no, it's like, we got to clean this up and we got to go. And Glenn really reminded them, like, no, like, we need to take this time to let them go and process our grief. And Glenn's the best out of all of them. Glenn just really, like, that was his, like, only line in that whole thing. One of his only lines. And it was probably, like, the best line, one of the best lines in that whole thing, because he just really, like, he allowed people the space to grieve, and I think that's really, really important. Like, you know, things are so hectic and things are so crazy for them.
Let's not forget our humanity. Like, we're trying to survive, yes.
Yeah.
But also, let's not forget what our humanity
like, we gotta respect the people that have passed on, you know, except for Ed. Do you know?
I don't know who it is. Was it the guy that was pointing a shotgun at Rick?
Or... No, that's Shane. We will talk about that though. Okay. But Shane, no, Ed. So you know the girl Carol. Daryl was going around hitting heads, and then Carol was like, "Let me do it. It was my husband." And then she just starts, like, whacking his head.
Yeah.
She went through the grief process, like, right after another. It was like denial when she saw Ed was dead, and then the next morning it was anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Like, because Ed, in the previous episodes, Ed beat her, and Shane ended up beating his ass for, like, slapping her, and so he was, like, a very abusive, like, husband, and so it's such a complicated like thing because she like loved her abusive husband, and she had like Stockholm syndrome for him, and she was like, I need to do this to my husband because he's my husband. But then all of her anger and her frustration just like went out on this guy, you know?
Yeah, because you're grieving your dead husband at the same time you're relieved because you're free from your captor.
And yeah, and like she mentions Ed before, but after that, like she doesn't really pay him any mind after that. Like she let go of him pretty quick. Like she bashed his head in 5 times, and it was really gross. And then she cried and moved on. And Daryl looked at her like, "Man, you got issues, lady."
Yeah,
and I mean, she does though. But
at first I was scared because I thought she was gonna miss the head too, and I thought that was Daryl. That's what Daryl's look was like. You gotta be careful, and then she just keeps bashing. It was kind of funny too, in a little bit.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Damn."
Yeah. It was. You just saw all that anger and tension that she had towards him just release. And, you know, you gotta grieve how you gotta grieve, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't blame her one bit for doing that. And then, okay, I want to bring this up. Jim missed the point on why they were originally going to the CDC. They were going to the CDC for him, and then, like, they were driving, and he's like, I can't make it. And then, I don't know, I feel like I'd be kind of upset, because, like, yeah, you're probably gonna die, but we're literally going to the CDC to see if they have a cure for you, you know?
Yeah.
And then he's just like, nah, you guys go ahead. And it's like, no, like, you, like, I probably would be like, he's gotta come. Like, we're going to the CDC for him, we gotta make sure, you know? And, like, people were, like, talking about, like, I couldn't live with myself, and it's not your choice, but I think Jim accepted his death. I think he just didn't want to deal with his emotional turmoil as well as his physical turmoil. Because he mentions before, and in the comics, like, that he basically watched his family, like, all die in front of him. And that's how he was able to get away. Like, his family was ripped apart in front of him. His entire family.
Oh, boy.
And then he found this group. And the last episode, he, like, went through a psychotic break and stuff. And he just, I don't know. I would have been like, it's like and we know that he wouldn't have gotten cured. But it's still the purpose of them going to the CDC.
Because of him.
Was one, because Rick thought it was the right thing to do, and he wanted to find a cure. And two, was originally because he got bit. They wouldn't have probably mentioned it this episode if they didn't find someone got bit, you know? And Rick hadn't mentioned it. And I just think, I don't know, what do you think?
Well, that's a tough... Because he wanted to die. Like, you can see the agony. Like, he's breathing. It feels... it's funny to make this relations like... It feels like he's having COVID right there. And let's get you to the CDC to get you that vaccine, boys. Like, no, man, I could have breathed for... I'm like, okay, man, it's your funeral.
Yeah.
But he gave the whole group a purpose to get there. So I think he was just like... They're going to the CDC because of me, but deep down, I think he knew that there was no way to.
I don't think he wanted to live anymore. I think he was like,
"This is it.
My body's done. My brain's done. I don't know if I'm gonna survive the drive there.
I don't know if you guys are gonna survive the drive if I turn." So
yeah, and so, I mean, that's an easy solution. Just handcuff him, or tie him up. But like, yeah, I don't know. I think he gave up too quickly. But that's just my opinion. I have no idea how that virus feels, you know. I have no idea, like, how that fever feels. I'm sure it sucks.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it looked like it sucked.
He was puking blood, I think,
yeah,
too. Like,
yeah.
It's like, I could say he got a fever or something, so you feel like a heavy fever, and then you feel like all your internals just failing. Like, you know you're about to die. You feel the death very painfully. And then you know you're going to be revived as a cadaver, a walker.
I feel like it was the group's responsibility to tell him, no, like, you may think you're sane right now, but you're going through a lot of pain, and I understand you want it to be over, but, like, we got to see this through. I think that was the group's responsibility to say that. And then, when they got there, found out there was no vaccine, found out there was no cure, then they let him die. You know? I think it was just a little too soon to let him die. But that's just my opinion. But
good point there. Because that way he just knows the truth. It's like, oh, there's no cure. Okay, let me die in peace.
I don't know, because, like, there was still hope for him.
Yeah.
We know that there's no hope for him, but there were the group mindset was like, there's still hope for him. You know, I mean, a lot of them didn't believe that the CDC had a cure, but like it was. I don't know. I just think they gave up on him too quickly. He gave up on himself too quickly.
Yeah, what if they actually found a cure? It's like, shit, we gotta go to trip. It's like, oh no, he walking down.
He's already dead. He's a walker, dude.
It's like, oh damn. If only we had brought.
If only we had brought him. Yeah. I don't know. I think they went too soon. But anyway, let's move on to the next topic that I saw in the episode. So, we saw a lot of risks and hope, like, and what risks, like weighing risks, and what risks do we take for hope. The first thing we see throughout the episode is Rick like talking to nothing, to Morgan, and I can't remember if Morgan said he heard him. I don't think Morgan heard him. I think for some reason like he wasn't able to hear him or whatever in the future, but like Rick is like hoping that Morgan will hear it and then find him. But I didn't think about this before, but like, what if some bad person heard that transmission and they knew exactly where to find Rick? You know, and I don't think it's that far into the zombie apocalypse where there would be people with that much ill intent. I think right now they're in survival mode, but like, Rick was taking a huge risk to help someone that he barely met.
Yeah, because the good point there is, I mean, you're right. When the zombie apocalypse barely starts, like, how long was it? Like a month or weeks? Or
it was about like a month-ish.
Okay, then people still have their morals still intact, because like we still live in a society here, even though it's but we still gotta remain hopeful that we'll reconstruct and just be back to normal and follow our rules. Although there's also some bad people already in our society, which will thrive in this chaotic society, because like there's anarchy. What you gonna do?
Yeah.
If I shoot you down, are you gonna call the cops? They're probably walkers. They're dead, or they're also gonna join me. So that's a good point on the risk. And the other risk is, well, if he was talking to the air, what if there were more walkers coming down? Like, I don't know how loud that walker horde is, but just being out there, I believe it's too risky. Like, I believe the strength should be on a safe to defend position with your crew. And if you're going to go somewhere, have at least somebody else with you, at least. Just a companion. That way you have a chance for both of you to survive and go back to your group if everything is gone to hell. So
Yeah, and that was just like something I noticed. But then we see a lot, like the argument versus guns versus manpower, you know, like where, you know, and then Rick's asking Lori, like, hey, do you think I made the right choice? And Lori's like, I don't know, bro. I don't think you both are entirely wrong, but I don't think you both are entirely right, you know? And it was all about like if they all would have stayed, they ran the risk of that horde still coming and them not having enough firepower to take care of the horde, or because they left, they did risk manpower not being at the camp, and they also risked their own lives to go get the guns and to go get Merle. And so it's all about like weighing the risks, and like I feel like risks have a lot to do with the priorities you are willing to like your biggest priorities, because like
in this case being survival, because you're in a zombie apocalypse, there's a lot of walkers, and well, the best case scenario is just to avoid them, because guns are loud as hell. And not everybody's gonna have silent weapons, and silent weapons are really hard to use, especially if they're melee range. Like, if you miss, you're dead. So Rick taking the risk of taking the guns, he was thinking ahead in the future, because they're not gonna stay in that little camp forever. There's literally little to no resources, just like a stop.
Yeah, and like and people were talking about like how he's stupid for wanting to go to the CDC. I'm like, that sounds pretty smart. I'm not gonna lie. Like, why would you guys stay at this camp when you know it's not safe? Like, you have no protection. You have no walls to keep them out. It's not safe anymore at this camp. Why the hell would we stay? Yeah. Like, you just got attacked like the night before, and you're like worried that you guys might get attacked on your way to the CDC. Like, there's risks involved in everything. And I mean, like, an example in my life where risks are involved, like I decided to be, you know, an acting major. I decided to pursue acting, and you know, a lot of people tell me, they're like, man, you're gonna have to struggle for money, which I have arguments against, and I disagree. I think there's a lot of work for actors out there right now, but I do run that risk of, you know, not having work for or not having the work I want for like months on end. You know, I do run that risk, but the risk of me having a mind-numbing job, like a mind-numbing 9-to-5 job that I hate, and I hate my life, is way heftier than me
Pursue
not
your
having as
dreams.
much money because I wasn't an accountant or an engineer. You know, and so it's all about your priorities and the risks you're willing to take. And I mean, we see that with like choosing family. You know, like that one family that was like,
Yeah.
we're gonna freaking go
To
to
Bergman, Alabama.
yeah, like we're gonna go here, and I'm like, you guys are. When I saw that, I was like, you guys are idiots. Like, what makes you think one that they're alive?
That was what I was thinking too. It's like, sure, they may be alive, but who else is gonna be friendlier than this group? You know, because people are gonna scavenge for goods, and again, there's a lot of bad people already, and add to the chaos, you have anarchy. So, are you really gonna trust another human being that you barely know that hasn't risked his life to save you?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and it looked like all of the protection for that family was on Morales. Like because not saying like the kids can't protect themselves or the woman couldn't protect the kids, but I mean like he was the one that was primarily in that relationship, like actually going and fighting walkers, going into the city, you know, and like and he is sacrificing, you know, he's sacrificing his and his family's safety to hopefully find more family in a place that he has no idea. And we also saw that with like Shane's like, so you're willing to save your marriage over the safety of the group. And like people will take risks for their family over everything else.
oh yeah, that's definitely true. And I I don't know what's the ethnicity of this family, but they look very Hispanic, and Hispanics have
They're Hispanic, yeah.
Okay, they have a really strong sense of connection to family. Cause,
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll literally just die.
Well, it's about your like priorities, you know.
Yeah, it's already embedded into us, and well, I can respect the risk, but sometimes you gotta see, because if you don't risk, you don't win at life. Like that's a philosophy of life. Like if you want something, you have to risk a lot of things, but the reward is there, guaranteed. If you continue on, you don't know when you're gonna get it. That's the other risk. Maybe you're not gonna get it unless you keep fighting or you find other ways. Because as you said, like acting, many people say it's not like a lucrative career, but like it is. It can be. You just gotta be better and just promote yourself. You have to market yourself. Like it sounds weird, but that's what good actors do. They just market themselves. They get better resumes. They go into better. You grow up. So I respect that grind, Zach. So
thanks. No, but it's like one thing I learned is that like in this episode is that risks are worth taking for hope. Like the risk that you take for hope, like. The reason why I'm on Rick's side throughout this entire episode is because, like you said, he's looking for the future. He's looking towards the bigger picture, which is not just survival, but like having a society after we find a way to survive this madness. And Shane, he's only focused on his freaking like, Rick came and took Lori, who wasn't actually mine. Rick came and took Carl, who wasn't actually mine. And Shane is like, I don't want to move because that's dangerous. And I'm like, bro, if you stay there, there's no hope. But if you go and find the CDC and they might have a cure, there is like some hope. And I think hope helps us take risks a lot of the time. And like, hope is worth taking risks for.
Oh, yeah. I read an article about an experiment on hope. Some scientists were literally putting like little mice on barely on cold water or something, and they were trying to just let them the mice swim for a bit until they get tired. And they were about to give up in 15 minutes. And after they started to give up, the scientists just put them out, and then they put them back in. They lasted 3 hours because they had the hope that they were going to get picked up again. So hope is a powerful thing.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
You're right in that one.
And I get so mad at people for them getting mad at Rick, and we all do it. Like with leadership, like we always get mad at leadership
when something goes wrong,
or like when something like doesn't go our way. But it is incredibly hard to be a leader because like Daryl, when they weren't being allowed into the CDC at first, Daryl was like, you made a bad call, and then like I think someone mentioned that like he made a call and that's that. And like I don't know. I feel bad for Rick because Rick just wanted hope, and he was like yelling at Dr. Fauci. That's not his actual name. I just call him that. He's yelling at Dr. Fauci for not letting him into the building, and he's like, "You're killing us. You're killing us." Because like you saw like the hope like leave him, and yeah, I don't know. When you're a leader, it's hard to make everyone happy, and it's hard to like do things. But like also, if someone doesn't make the calls, who's gonna make the calls? You know?
Yeah, leader holds a group together, and if there's no leadership, you're gonna splinter the whole group. Which, if you're gonna splinter a group, the chance of survival drop dramatically. So. Yeah, a good leader knows that they're about to mess up something, and the group's not gonna be happy. So how do you make them, trust you more? Like, well, I think Rick got his best shot here when the doors opened finally, but that's because he had hope. Had he noticed that the doors were locked, it's like, oh well, we're fucked. Let's find a building we're safe because there's gonna be walkers anytime soon here.
Yeah.
But the moment he saw that camera move, it's like
he's like, no, they're in there. They're in there. Yeah, and they're like, you imagined it. He's like, I did not imagine it. Yeah.
He's like, well, it's it's automated. They have gears and all that shit.
Yeah. So I did. So you brought this up, and I did want to bring up like Shane pointing the gun at Rick, because that I couldn't find a moral dilemma to talk about, but that moment was just like, it's one of the best in that entire episode because Rick technically like gaslights Shane a little bit because like Rick is like, Shane's expressing his feelings and Rick says something like, well, maybe you would feel differently if you had a family, and then Shane was expressing his feelings about that. He's like, I took care of your family. Like, what did you just say to me? And then Rick basically just like, oh no, you misinterpreted that. And then they hear a noise, and then Shane sees the opportunity to shoot Rick. Then he stops himself, and then he looks in Dale's there, and he's like, Jesus.
It's like, we better have like reflective gear here or something. It's like, mind if you don't do that again?
Yeah, it was. That's just such a good moment because like I said before that I think Lori was the catalyst to starting Shane's spiral, but it was also Rick, sort of, without Rick realizing it, that like, because Shane goes crazy eventually.
Oh.
Like he goes basically insane, and like Rick, he did not validate Shane's emotions, and I mean he did say that he was happy that Shane took care of, his family, but I mean, I think it's very easy for us to disenfranchise someone because they're not in the exact same spot that we're in. Like it's very easy to be like, well, you don't have the same experience as me, so how could you know? I get that all the time when like I disagree with parenting methods, but parents hate that when you disagree with their parenting methods when you're not a parent. Yes. And it's like, well, just because I'm not a parent doesn't mean that I can't disagree with what you're saying.
Because some methods are outdated, so now there's newer methods that are more effective without, damaging your child in the future. Which that's the thing. A lot of parents, a lot of old parents don't get that. Sure, you're gonna hate your child because misbehaving now, and it's gonna calm them now, but the damage stays there, and it's gonna grow into adulthood, and you create monster adults.
Yeah.
Because you mistreat that child. That's a critical part. Always treat your kids with respect, and if you're getting annoyed at them, talk to them civilized and do actions, because kids respond to actions like, oh, I'm going to ground you. It's like, no, you're not. And you ground them, and they're going to learn from that, like,
Yeah, well, like, I mean, I've seen study after study of just, if you talk to your kids like they're human instead of treating them like they're inferior, they are more respectful and they are kinder, and they, because you're treating them like a human being. But it just because someone, obviously if you have experience in it, and like, let's say, if you have experience in something, like you do have, knowledge in that and you have experience in it. But if you have experience in something and you're doing it poorly, that's not really good experience,
That's bad.
Like if I have a lot of experience in math. I mean, I went to the Academy for Math, Engineering, and Science.
Oh, sweet.
But just because I have experience in math doesn't mean I'm good at math.
Oh, yeah.
I suck at math.
I can relate
all the time. Like just because like that doesn't mean I'm an expert in math. It just means I have experience in it. A lot of the times, like, experience, generally speaking, will make you better if you choose to be better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I never chose to be good at math because I hated math, so I never got better at it.
Which is a contrary to me, because I need math to get into my major. So I'm starting to get better at it. But the most important thing is I'm learning from my mistakes.
Yeah.
Because I'm not perfect. I always mess up my negatives and my negatives, which become positive, or I forget to write my negatives.
Yeah.
That always happens, but I know I'm making a mistake, and that's positive reinforcement to always look for your mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Those are the best teachers you ever have.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah, it's just because you have experience in it doesn't mean that you're good at it. You get better at it by realizing you make mistakes.
Yeah.
And by changing the mistakes that you make. Like, I know some actors right now that they're technically in the same level as everyone else in my program, but some of them have a harder time taking notes and taking criticism and realizing their mistakes, and they may have the same experiences or similar experience to people that are in the same program, but if they don't change their mistakes and they don't change their flaws in it,
they're gonna be
that experience means nothing. Same thing with like parenting, same thing with anything you do. You can have so much experience in it, but if you're garbage at it and you don't fix it,
you're gonna be garbage.
You're gonna still be garbage at it,
Yeah.
And so, Shane had an opinion about how things were supposed to be run, and how things were supposed to go, and it was invalidating for Rick to tell him it's because he doesn't have a family, so he doesn't understand. But Shane was taking care of Rick's family, and so he kind of knew how to take care of a family, and he had a wife before, or a girlfriend or whatever, before. And so he knew how to take care of a family. But basically, just because you have experience in something doesn't mean that you're good at it. And just because you have less experience in something, but you have opinions on it and you've looked at it critically, doesn't mean that you can't have an opinion on that.
You always look at everything with an objective point of view. Because, I don't know about my acting skills. I haven't been doing theater in a while, but I know you have way more experience than I do. But I know how to act, and I know how to perform, and I can give you opinions of what you do. But because
everyone has opinions.
Yeah, but because you understand that I'm not doing this to criticize you, you understand that I'm doing this to make you better.
Well, yeah, and I don't take every opinion to heart. Like, if I did, then that would be awful.
It's like, how dare you insult my dad?
No, but it's, if those same opinions keep coming up, maybe it's time to reevaluate. If people tell you, hey, maybe don't yell at your kids, maybe it's time to reevaluate.
Yeah.
And if people say, hey, you don't really understand what it's like to have a family because of what you've told me and what you said, maybe it's time to reevaluate. But one opinion isn't like a fact, but if multiple opinions keep happening and keep coming up in your life, then it's sort of like, okay, or if an expert, and a known expert tells you something, then it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Like,
and it's time to change, and it's your responsibility to change, or you are going to continue to not grow in that. So, we will come back to you guys with a quick musical break, and we will be right back with the moral dilemma. And we are back. Welcome back. So, here's your moral dilemma, Kevin. Okay?
All right.
So, you are co-workers with someone whose spouse died.
Okay, yeah.
Right. And their spouse died, and it's been about a year since their spouse died. Actually, no, let's say you're a boss. You're a boss to someone that you're over whose spouse has died, and their spouse died over a year ago. It's been about a year, and they are continuing to not perform as well. They are continuing to come late to work, leave early, sleep, not get deadlines on time. What do you do in that situation? I mean, they did suffer the loss of a very dear loved one.
Yeah.
But it's also been a year. So what do you do?
Oh, man. Well, as we said earlier, like, people grieve differently, and if you let them grieve unhealthily by themselves, and we gotta step up a bit and just like let them, the boss knows, like, hey, I understand you're still grieving, and I don't have a spouse or a girlfriend for that matter. I used to, but anyways, I'm not saying. But but I understand the feeling of losing said person. And you're not alone. Like, we want to help you out, but for us to help you out, you have to help yourself out. At least enough for us. At least for the workplace to be functioning correctly. Like, let us do some of your stuff. Like, I don't know, like at Supas, our managers, they just count what ingredients we need to prep or whatnot. So let us do that for you for a little bit. Just focus on like doing something easier first. But we need a leader there ahead, like somebody straight, because if you're not straight with us, our other leaders are not going to be straight because they're going to carry your weight, which they have done for a whole year.
Mm-hmm.
And the actual district managers, the ones that are above the actual store managers, they are going to see that. And we don't want you to get fired because we love you.
Mm.
But you need to pull your weight just a little bit, just for us. Like, we are going to grieve with you, but also help us out. I don't know, it's weird because I feel empathy too, but there gets to a point where, like, okay, it's not working out. We have to step in. And
yeah.
I think a year is, well, you lost your spouse. I don't know how to feel about that, but it feels like a punch in the guts. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically what you're saying is that, talk to them, find out where they're coming from, and then figuring out, like, a plan to help them get better?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
okay, cool.
Help them do some of their stuff, whatever stuff they have. Well, I don't know what responsibilities they have, but like just a little bit, like just so they don't feel, not useless, but like they don't feel.
So figure out a plan to help them until they can get to a point, but they would have to be able to get to that point. Yeah. Eventually, where they can do them stuff by themselves. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, thanks for answering that question, and thank you, listeners, for listening. You can let us know what you think about this moral dilemma or about the whole episode if you want on our Instagram and our Twitter. Instagram is feed don't eat your brain with underscores in between each word on Instagram, and then on Twitter it is at Zaki the Zombie. You can also email with any comments, questions, concerns, suggestions at feeddon'teatyourbrain@gmail.com. And then please like, subscribe, and share this podcast. That will help us a lot, as well as my production company. We are coming out with a lot of new stuff at the tail end of this year after
exciting.
Yeah. One, I'm gonna plug in my short film for a little bit. So middle of September, middle of this month, I will be releasing Artificial Love. So go ahead and check that out. And you can look up Fortune Horseman, where that will be posted on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, where we post the videos. Take care of yourselves. Do you have anything you would like to say? Anything you want them to follow you on or something?
Oh dear. I mean, I only post some sad boy stuff on Twitter sometimes. Not gonna lie. Sometimes lyrics from sad songs.
My personal Twitter is very edgy as well.
And also
it has to be.
My handle tag is so complicated too.
You don't have to if you don't want to.
I know.
Okay. Don't follow Kevin on anything. If you do,
inverse psychology, by the way, you're gonna follow.
He'll be sad.
You'll be sad.
You'll be sad. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Have a good night, day, evening, whatever time you're listening to this. Please stay safe, stay healthy, have fun. Goodbye.